listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.
I've been following you for a bit now, and I saw your stories. Training is looking good, dude. Nutrition's dialed in, macros are dialed in.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Staying dialed. It's going good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the holidays a little too much this year, and so I've been busting my ass to get in the best shape that I've ever been in, and I'm probably like 7 to 10 pounds away from that, but this is the best shape I've been in a long time. Not ever, but in a long time. So I'm happy.
Is there anything specific you're training for right now?
Jiu-jitsu for sure.
Okay.
Definitely, like, because when I compete in jiu-jitsu, so I've only done a few competitions, but I've competed between 190 and 199, that weight class. I don't know what the name for it is in jiu-jitsu, but that's been my weight class, and it's just a little too much, because if I'm carrying too much body fat, let's say if I'm 18 to 20% body fat and I'm going against a guy that's 10 or 11% body fat at that same weight, I'm getting my ass beat. And that was definitely the case in my last tournament. So I'm like, okay, I was already losing weight because just for aesthetic purposes, but also that was my sort of that was my the not reminder, but the I don't know what the word is off the top of my head, but that was the moment that I realized that I had to get into a different weight class, one that I actually have an advantage in. So my goal right now is around the low 180s. I think I'll be pretty 10 or 11% body fat around there. And I can cut down into the 170s and compete with people that are 5 to 6 inches shorter than me. And I'll be ripped, obviously. So I'll have a major advantage. So that's what I'm training for sure. But also aesthetic purposes, because I've kind of been a fat kid all my life. I've always held on to more fat than I wanted to. And while I've been skinny in the past, I've never been ripped. So like I was very skinny when I graduated high school. And then for 2 or 3, 4 years, maybe I maintained like 160 to 180, somewhere in that range. I did put on a little bit of muscle around my early 20s. But then I went on like a decade-long bulk, and ended up not looking so great. And so that was the only period of time where I had like relatively low body fat percentage. So with the muscle that I put on, I've never had the combination of like muscle mass plus, and I'm not huge, but like, I've never had the combo of low body fat plus the muscle mass that I put on. So that's kind of the goal now, is just check that box and be like, okay, I got ripped, and I can actually bulk again, because I've been cutting, quote unquote, for a while.
And it's whenever you're training for a sport, whether that be BJJ or whatever it is, you have to kind of balance the line between, okay, am I trying to look good or am I trying to perform good?
Right.
Because like you want to be as shredded as you can aesthetically, sure, but that's going to suffer. Like you're not going to be able to recover as well. You're not eating enough food. You're not going to be able to perform as well. So you have to either be an athlete or look really, really good sometimes. And so you have to balance those buckets.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot for me would probably be like 10 to 12% body fat for performance. But I do have a personal life box I want to check, which is getting down to single digit body fat percentage, just to say I did it. And just to see what that looks like and feel what that looks like, because like I said, I've been kind of a chubby kid all my life. Like I've always had this like skinny fat frame where like I've always had the spare tire and the love handles. And ever since I was a kid, that's just how I've been built. I was the kid that wore the shirt to the pool, not because I was fat or whatever, but just because I've had this like stuff on me that I didn't want. And it was in weird areas and I didn't like it. And I think a lot of people really didn't care, because with a t-shirt on, I looked fine. But like I knew, which was the problem. And so I've never felt what it feels like to just like have your body fat be so low that you're just kind of, I don't know, you just feel athletic, you feel lean. Like I don't know what that feels like aside from being skinny, which is a different feeling, So we'll see. That's what I'm working on right now, apart from everything else that I do. So
I mean, that's a sweet goal, getting down to those single digits and just seeing the veins where you don't normally see the veins, and you just have like the papery skin kind of feel that stretches off. Yeah, that's a goal. I've never really been that low either. I never got into like the bodybuilding stages of actual like competing. Like when I got into fitness, it was, you know, moving weights, you want to look good, you want to be aesthetic, but I never got like super far into that. I was always playing football, and then I transitioned into CrossFit and stuff like that. So I was always eating for performance, and just having that idea of being too lean. Like you want to have, like in CrossFit, you want to have some degree of fat. It's not the leanest, it's not the strongest who wins. You want to be able to have that extra fuel source, that ability to recover, that just durability. So I've definitely been, you know, fit. I've been in a good shape, but I've never had that, like that paper, like stretch your lower belly skin that kind of just, yeah. I'm kind of in that boat with you. Right now I'm training for Ironman, half Ironman, 70.3. And just by default, I'm kind of leaning up a little bit, doing way more cardio than what I was getting. But I'm kind of in the same boat. I was, in terms of wanting to get that lean. I have a more of a different background. I grew up, I was always kind of playing outside. I was always fit. I was always into sports, but then I was so into sports that after I stopped doing CrossFit, just like my identity, like in sport, I was like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do anything. No part of me wants to be in there. And so I just like lost muscle and weight and got fatter. Because I was doing nothing and just putting on the pounds. And then, so I went from somebody who was like super comfortable being outside. And then I realized, you know, whether that be like last year or whatever that is, now I'm getting back into it. I've been getting back into it a while. But I was at that point where I was like, I don't really want to take my shirt off. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because it made me kind of question my identity as somebody who's always been into health and fitness, somebody who's like, oh, I don't really care how I looked. But I realized like I was able to say that because I came from a position where like I grew up being okay with how I looked my entire life. And so it just applies a totally different perspective and makes you a little bit more considerate of people who maybe don't feel good in their skin, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have had the opposite experience. You know, I genuinely don't think at any other point in my life, at any point in my life, I've felt fully comfortable in my skin. Like there's always just been something, whether it's, you know, I'm fat or I'm too skinny, you know, like I said, I've never just been in that sweet spot where you just look in shape, you know? And that's particularly frustrating for a guy who, you know, goes on the internet and talks about being in shape and personal development and being healthy. Cause like, I don't look like that, you know? And, so from a brand perspective, you know, I get those comments all the time of like, this guy's 20% body fat. What's he talking about being in shape? It's like, I've always worked out. I've always, you know, eaten protein and like done all that, but I've never like been hell bent on being ripped until fairly recently. And truly, it's less because I want to be ripped. That's just that's a curiosity that I have. It's more because I found a sport that I'm super into, and in order to have a competitive advantage, having the most amount of muscle and the least amount of body fat is going to give me that advantage. So that's the true motivation. It's not out of a lack of being able to do it. I have the resources to be as lean as I want to be. You know, I can buy the groceries I want to buy. I have the coaches that I want to work with. Like I have access to it. I have just chosen not to utilize it, either sometimes because of a complete lack of discipline, which is definitely a real thing sometimes, but, you know, also because I haven't had a big enough why to really put myself through that.
Just give me one quick moment, then we'll be right back to the episode. If you are enjoying the show, go ahead and give me a follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. It helps way more than you'd think. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating or a review, that helps new people find the show as well. And if you have any questions or comments or recommendations for guests, go ahead and reach out to me at Chase C. Merrill on Instagram, or leave a comment right here on Spotify. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get back to the episode. Do you suffer from imposter syndrome at all? Based on what you just said, and you know, you get on social media, you talk about the self-discipline. How do you navigate that with how some people make these comments on social media? Does
all
that
the
affect
time.
you?
Of course I have imposter syndrome. I mean, I always say, like, if you don't have imposter syndrome, then you're not trying hard enough. I think that is a byproduct of doing things that are uncomfortable. Um, it's not that I'm uncomfortable being on the internet talking to the camera, because I've done that my entire life, but it's more so being in this space, you know, preaching a lifestyle of discipline, and having the perception of who people think I am be different than who I actually am, right? Because I I realized maybe a year ago or so, a little more than that, but sometime in 2023, months after starting this personal development thing, I started in the summer of 2022, and I was just like speaking as an I knew I was a normal guy, but I was speaking as an authority, and I was speaking as like an expert in personal development. But the truth is, I was just saying what I think, and that's how I've always been. I've just said what I think. But the problem is when you speak so authoritatively, people view you as an authority, and especially because my ability to speak, like, I can be very convincing and very passionate, and that comes across as somebody who sounds like they know everything, but I don't. And so I realized sometime in 2023 that, like, people were thinking that I'm an expert or that I'm somehow different than everyone else. And it's not the case at all. Like, I am a regular guy, and I struggle with the same things that regular guys do. I just understand the process, because the process of getting better and transforming yourself, because I've done it before. So I'm able to articulate those things and sort of speak thoughts into the minds of somebody who hasn't had those thoughts yet. And they're hearing something that they know is true about themselves, but they haven't had it said to them like that. But that doesn't by any stretch of the imagination mean that I'm better than them or I am different than them. But because I speak so convincingly about it, they think I am. And so I've sort of shifted my brand from more of that authoritative tone to more of like I'm just a regular dude tone, and like showing more of what that looks like, showing when I gained too much weight over the winter, like those are those moments that make that show that I'm a regular person, and I have lapse in my discipline just like everyone else. But the difference is I have the awareness and the experience to jump right back into discipline mode and achievement mode. And that might be the only thing that makes me different than the average person, is the experience that I've had transforming myself and how that plays into my life now. Everything else is normal. And so you asked about imposter syndrome, just to loop this all back. That's where the imposter syndrome comes from. It's not from saying things on the internet. It's from people thinking I'm an expert or an authority, when in reality, I'm just a regular guy, and I know I'm a regular guy, and I know all of my flaws, and I haven't communicated that well enough to my audience. And so that disconnect is where the imposter syndrome comes in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Do you feel some degree of responsibility? Does it affect your day to day, knowing like, hey, I'm on social media, I'm projecting this, or I'm speaking this way, I'm this authority figure on self improvement? Does it affect your day to day? Like, oh, I want to slack off or not go to the gym, but I know I need to, or I know I have to because that's what I say. And if I don't
Absolutely.
want to be a hypocrite.
Yep, 1000%. Like I don't want to like sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but I like to try to have as much integrity as I possibly can and truly live the things that I say. And sometimes I don't. And when I don't, I stop talking. So like people will notice in 2024, I was very inconsistent with my posting. I still posted a lot, more than probably the average person, but the year before that, I was posting twice a day religiously without fail every single day. Whereas in 2024, I'd have stretches where I'd be posting and then I wouldn't post for a little while. Because 2024, and I'm not making excuses about this, because a lot of people managed to figure it out, and I've sort of figured it out, at least so far. Like, I had my first child in 2024, February 2024. And that was a whole new thing, right? Trying to figure out how to balance all of this, how to balance my brand, how to balance my work, how to balance being a dad, being a husband, like, and taking care of myself, all at the same time. Before that, it was pretty easy, right? Because, it's just me, my wife, my brand, and my job, and that's it, right? And I can pick and choose what I do with that time. But now you throw a kid into the mix and it gets very haywire. It gets like you don't have 10 minutes of silence. You don't have the things that you had before. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to go do this for an hour, see ya, because there are responsibilities that are always looming. And so 2024 was that year where I had to figure it all out, and I failed at a lot of things, one of which being taking care of myself and exercising discipline. Because, when you're taking care of a child and you're trying to provide for your family, it's very easy to just be like, I don't want to cook ground beef and rice and do all that. And I don't want to, do this 45-minute cardio session. I'll just do it tomorrow. And that mindset and that mentality starts to creep back in, because it's not that you start making excuses. It's that you have a legitimate excuse, right? Like you've been exhausted. You've been working hard. You've been doing all these things. And if you skip that workout today, nobody is really going to blame you. You do kind of have a legitimate excuse. However, that's where the cracks in your mental armor start to begin, and that old mindset starts to creep in. And that's what happened for me last year. And so I was very inconsistent with my posting for that reason. And I felt that anytime that I posted while I was not exercising in real life the things that I preach, I felt like a hypocrite, and I felt like I felt it felt wrong. And so I just wouldn't post anything. And that hurt my brand a lot. Like my follower count on Instagram has gone down. It's not growing, it's gone down. And it's for that exact reason, because I've been out of the algorithm. I've been kicked off of people's feeds just because I hadn't been posting. And so my brand suffered for that, but I think my brand also didn't suffer because I maintained the integrity of preaching only when I practice. So there's absolutely a pressure of being the personal development guy and constantly trying to live up to who you perceive yourself, or who people perceive you as on the internet, which is a real thing, and I probably would have had a lot worse of a year last year, at least in terms of my own development, had I not had the pressure of my brand. And that pressure looms all the time.
It's like the ultimate accountability partner. I mean, you have 400,000 plus people. And I mean, I'm doing this half Ironman with my siblings, and there's 4 of us. If I don't get on the bike and ride that day, or if I'm not doing the extra stuff because I want to beat my sibling, like that's 4 people.
Yep.
Or whenever you have your brand around something, and this is a hack too, to just doing anything. Like if you can put it out there, if you can get people in your corner, or if you have that sense of integrity or that sense of shame, even like, I don't want to be the person who said I'm going to do something and then not do it.
Yeah.
Ultimate accountability partner.
Yeah.
But you have to balance that on not being too far. It's like, okay, I've got my wife, I've got this new baby. How do I not let that dictate how my wife or how my family's affected as well?
Yeah.
To some degree.
But at the same time, I think that my family benefits from it. I think that personal development bleeds into everything. And the more that I focus on becoming the best version of myself, the better I show up in every single area of my life. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to make sure your cup's full, and you're doing the things that, like, jiu-jitsu for me is a non-negotiable now, because what it has done for my mental health, like at the end of last year, around that time, like I was really struggling mentally, just from, and it wasn't like how it was before, where I was like anxious and depressed. I was just angry all the time. I just had this pent up rage that like I just wanted to snap at everyone, and I'd make comments that I didn't need to make. And it just, I don't know what it was. Truly what it was is I was just unhappy with myself, and I was frustrated with myself, and I couldn't, and that was just manifesting itself in every area of my life. Like everything was more frustrating. I was irritated all the time. And it definitely affected my marriage and the way that I parent, and like that was not a good time. And then I went back to jujitsu. I trained jujitsu a few years ago for like 5 months. So when I say back, it's very loosely. I went back at the beginning of this year, and I had actually switched gyms because I was training at another gym, but the environment wasn't right for me. So I switched gyms, and this is like this is the best environment with the best people, coolest down to earth people that like enjoy the same things that I enjoy off the mat. Like I'm a Christian, my friends are Christian, and they have the same sense of humor that I do. And so like this was the first time in a real long time that I've kind of found a place outside of my home. And I think everybody needs that. I think that everybody needs a place that is outside of their home where they can get energized from, whether it's friends that they have, or a feeling that they get, or just somewhere that they attain mental clarity. And jujitsu is honestly all of those things for me. Like when I go to jujitsu, I walk in and I mean, it's hard to think about anything else when somebody's trying to choke you. Like I'll have a whole 5-minute round, and if it's super intense, my mind did not, I wasn't even thinking, like I'll finish around and be like, I feel like I was just like in my body the whole time. Like I wasn't even in my mind. I wasn't thinking, like that internal dialogue that happens all the time, just dead silent. And I'm just focusing on the next move that I'm doing. And that combined with like the camaraderie of like, cause I would play basketball. So like in my life, that locker room camaraderie was like a big thing for me at that time. And I haven't really had it for a very, very long time, because starting in 2021, I started working from home. And so I just kind of was like shitting where I eat, like everything was in the same place, and I didn't have that disconnect from everything else in my life, my problems, my family, I didn't have that place to like just disconnect and step back. And jujitsu became that place. So now to me, jujitsu is a non-negotiable. And like, yes, I care about getting good at the sport. I want to compete at the sport. I want to be great at the sport. I want to have a black belt. I want to do all those things. But more importantly, the way that I enter my home after I've gone to jujitsu is 100 million times better than how I was entering it before I went back to jujitsu. I come home, I'm in a good mood. I've worked out. If I do nothing else that day, I'll still feel accomplished because I had a great workout. I talked with my friends. We bullshitted. We had a good time. And that just positions me for the day better than anything else. It's the only thing that's ever gotten me up at 6 a.m. religiously, just because of what it does. So like, while we talk about that pressure and going too far with it, some would say like, you go to jujitsu 7 days a week, you can't take a day for your family. No, because the way that my family benefits from the version of myself that has gone to jujitsu outweighs the 1 or 2 hours that it costs for me to go do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I moved to Denver, almost been here about a year now. My wife just started medical school, so she's been going for a year. Don't know anybody here, didn't know anybody here. Have a background of, fitness, CrossFit, coaching, Olympic weightlifting, been out of the game. When I got here, I started going to a CrossFit gym, had some fun, did not want to bring any kind of competition pressure to it. Didn't want it to ruin my vibe. I didn't want to feel like I had to work out. Like I still have nightmares from those like over training days when we were training like 6 hours a day. It's like, I got to go to the point till I throw up, I got to go hard. Like that's CrossFit. You suffer, you get better at suffering. That's all the sport is to some degree. So I got back in here, started going to this gym, realized, maybe I want to start coaching again, got my certification, and just said, hey, I'll coach, 3 or 4 classes a week, just want to make some friends, find some people in my area. So I started doing that for about 6 weeks, and then I started training for this Ironman. And like a month ago, I stopped coaching. And it wasn't until you kind of said what you said there. It's like, I haven't been to the gym. Like, I'm training by myself. I'm doing these Ironman sessions. I realized like my cup is a lot less full than when I was like coaching. Because A, I'm talking to people, I'm hanging out with people, but B, it's super enjoyable. Like, that's something that I realize fills my cup, is like taking somebody who maybe doesn't have the proper squat mechanics and like isolating it and doing it. And they say, Chase, I can't get that low. But if we sit down and we tweak it and we play around with it for a little bit, and it's like, oh, you actually can.
Yeah.
You just didn't have that knowledge. And that's something that really filled my cup. Like, maybe I'll train a little bit less if for this Ironman or whatever I'm doing, but I feel a lot happier. I bring that better energy home to my wife. I bring that better energy throughout my day. And I think that's super valuable opinion and point that you made there, is having that thing that fills your cup, because you can't pour from that empty cup.
For sure.
What about BJJ is appealing to you? Because as somebody who hasn't tried it but has been, exposed to it, is interested in it, what fills that cup for you? What's so fun about it?
Well, it does. You're going to have to cut me off at some point. So, so from a mental perspective, I've already explained how, like, it just clears your mind, because you walk in thinking about all these different things, and then you just separate from that for a complete hour and you just focus on the physical. Like, even when you're lifting weights, you still have that time in between sets to think about your problems, right? But with jiu-jitsu, it's a 5-minute round. I mean, you're if it's a class, you're spending 30 minutes learning a technique, which you have to focus on doing the technique right, and getting that right. And then the other 30 minutes you're rolling, which is basically sparring, for those that don't know. And then for an open mat, that's a full hour of rolling. And so you're spending 5 minutes completely disconnected from your thoughts, completely disconnected from your problems, completely disconnected from everything except for what you're doing in that very moment. So it's like, it makes you the most present that you could possibly be. And then 5 minutes is up and you only have a minute to catch your breath and find who you're rolling with next. And then it's time to go. And so it's basically a full hour of just presence. And by the time you walk out of there, you have the endorphins going, you have the sense of accomplishment. If you hit a nice submission, or you tapped a bunch of people, or like, you're immediately in a good mood from that, just because like anybody who does jiu-jitsu, they want to win. And so when you win your rolls and you get a bunch of submissions, like that's your testosterone literally boosts because you won, and so, then you reapproach your problems with all those endorphins and all those feel good chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine from doing something hard. And you're proud of yourself because you got up in the morning and you did the thing you didn't really feel like doing when staying in bed was easier. So there's all these aspects to it where, you get all the benefits of any other workout. But it's that unique sense of presence while you're doing it that for some reason just completely wipes your mind clean of whatever you were mad about. And then you're just less, at least I experience when I reapproach my daily life and my family and my problems, I'm just in a much better mental position to deal with them. Because, I mean, what's more stressful than a grown man trying to choke you out? Like, if I start my day doing that, then everything else kind of feels easy.
I was about to say, problems look a lot easier,
right, exactly.
once you've been choked
Right.
out. I've heard it described as like physical chess. Like,
Absolutely. So that was my next point. So, like, if you're the type that likes chess or any strategic game, jiu-jitsu is definitely that. And it's uniquely that because technique can overcome just about any strength or athleticism. If you have a new guy that walks into jiu-jitsu and he is 270 pounds of pure muscle and an athletic specimen, and he goes against some 140-pound skinny guy that's a black belt, he's getting the big guy's getting destroyed. Like, it is the ultimate equalizer. And so what I love about it is that there's no luck involved. There's no lucky submissions. Either you did the right thing or you did the wrong thing. Either you knew what to do and didn't execute it, or you didn't know what to do. Right? So that is, it's just a complete meritocracy of a sport. You know, your competence, your knowledge, your ability to execute, your timing, all of that, your strategy, all of that is what is going to make you excel at the sport. Physical attributes only matter when there's an equal skill level, right? If a brand new white belt and a brand new white belt go at each other, the bigger guy's probably going to win, just because they at the same skill level, other factors start coming into play. But skill reigns supreme, and that's what makes it like chess, because like, just like in chess, you're always thinking about the next move. You're trying to stay 2 steps ahead of your opponent, and there's no luck involved. There's no chance. It is you moved the piece in the right position or you did not. And that's what makes it super fun. And it's really like low stakes, you know, because the worst thing that's going to happen, obviously people get injured, accidents happen, but like, the worst thing that happens is you get in a bad position, you tap, and then you start over, you know, and then you just focus on learning about what got you in that position, how you can fix it. And then you walk in the next class, a better jiu-jitsu player. And then I'd say thirdly about jiu-jitsu is that I have 2 more points, then I'll shut up. So the third one is that everybody's cool. I guess these 2 points can be put together. Everybody's cool. And the reason everybody is cool is because egos don't last in jiu-jitsu. They last in every other sport, but they don't last in jiu-jitsu because of exactly what I said in the last point, is that technique reigns supreme. Even the most egotistical, athletic jock that walks in thinking he's going to beat everybody up, that just sees red and says, I'm going to, you know, you don't know what I'm like, bro. I'm like that. Those guys don't last because they just get destroyed. And the minute that an ego is recognized in the gym by somebody, then it's all hands on deck. We're going to pile on this guy, and each of us is going to take turns absolutely demolishing this guy, right? Because you just have to be humble. You have to admit that you suck. There's nobody that walks in and is good, ever, never, ever. Like wrestlers, they might have a slight advantage, but the minute that it goes to the ground, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do. And so it is the ultimate humbling experience. And that's what makes everyone cool, because everybody, no matter who you are, no matter how big, no matter how small, no matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter. The minute that or everybody, no matter their skill level, whether they're white, blue, purple, brown, or black belt, every single person in that gym knows what it's like to suck on day one. And so everyone's had to be humbled in that room, every single person. And so that's what makes everyone kind of, there's like a collective suffering aspect, even though we kind of all experienced it differently and at different times. We all have experienced it. So we share in that feeling. So there's an immediate like respect for each other in that way. And they might not respect your skills. If it's a black belt, they're going to be like, you're trash, you know, because I'm a 4-stripe white belt, you know, but I might be trash to them, but still there's a personal respect, because as a 4-stripe white belt, that means I went through the process of being a helpless child on the mat, and I still stuck around, you know?
Absolutely.
So
I started fencing a couple months back. No experience with fencing. I was like, something I want to do. I wanted to do a sport that didn't involve pain to get better. It was skill based, like something like that. And super humbling. I go in with these adults, and there's this 65-year-old lady. We line up on the strip, and I'm stronger, I'm faster. She peels me apart every time. It's not even close. It's not even close because the skill
Yep.
the skill is there. I go to parry and I way overcompensate. She just moves the quarter centimeter that her
That's
hand needs
exactly
to
what.
move.
Yep.
And you develop that skill, which is, and it's so amazing. Like every time I lose to her and pretty everybody, I lose to everybody except for the people in my starting class, is just so fun because it's so cool to watch how precise and how good and how they're able to see these things,
Yeah.
because based on what the instructors say, fencing is the fastest sport outside of shooting a gun. It's even faster than like a loosed arrow at the Olympics. Just that full lunge is so quick. And so you have to be able to react before the move even
Right.
happens. And so just being able to appreciate how much skill and how much time and how much pattern recognition these people have is phenomenal. And so the ability to go into a sport knowing that you're going to suck and just being okay with
Yeah.
that, I think is huge. And it's huge for life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a really good lesson because there are so many people who, they refuse to try anything because they don't want to be bad. And like, honestly, that was the case for me. Funny story. My first jujitsu class ever was in 2015. So I was 19 years old and my aunt was doing jujitsu. She's a blue belt. And, she obviously stopped because she's still a blue belt as 10 years later. But I went in with her and I just got smoked by everybody. And I was like, I don't want to do this. You know why? Because I don't like to be bad at things. And then you go through life and you experience things and you try other things and you're like, oh, when you start something new, you're going to be bad at it. Kind of doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there are certain things that you might have a natural proclivity towards, but even that compared to people who actually work hard at it and have spent the time putting in the reps, you're still going to suck compared to them. So once you realize, oh, I'm going to suck at anything new that I start, but eventually I could get good, then the intimidation factor goes away. And so when I started jujitsu, I knew going in that I was going to get my shit kicked in. Like I knew that was going to happen. And so that made it a lot easier to stick around because I knew that eventually I'd figure it out. Um, and yeah, I mean, that goes for more than just jujitsu or fencing or any other thing. It goes for everything, whether you're starting a business or starting a new job or, trying to learn an instrument or whatever. Like if you are too scared to be bad that you're not going to do anything, then you're never going to be good at anything ever.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, and you can kind of tell who those people are kind of just when you talk. It's just like the lack of security and the lack of confidence in who they are as a person, that they have to, they're always trying to be the center of the attention. They're always trying to bring it on, make it about them, or try to establish whatever kind of dominance that looks like, where they're like, oh, what about me? What about what I accomplished? And you can kind of just sit back and be like, I kind of know who you are
Or they're the
already.
type of person
Like
that makes fun of you for being bad at something. It's like, well, that tells me that you've
exactly,
never tried anything. If you make fun of
exactly.
somebody for being bad at something, that means that you have never put yourself out there to try something different. You have only done what is comfortable to you. And so that is saying the quiet part out loud. That's telling on yourself the minute that you make fun of someone like that. Anybody who's gotten good at anything, or they're kind of that person that can walk into anything they do and get good at it, they understand better than anybody else that the first step is being god awful at it. So, and the fact
What
that
is it?
that person who makes fun of them doesn't understand that means that they don't have that experience, means they've never tried, means that they just do what's comfortable, which makes them weak.
Yep. What is the poem or the saying? But the man in the arena,
Right.
everybody can boo the man in the arena, but he's the only man in the arena.
Right.
So how did you go about creating the personal development content? Like, did you have a background of like consuming, books, listening to podcasts? Like, what made you flip that switch and say, hey, I feel comfortable enough to put my ideas out there? Where did you start developing that?
Well, I've always made content my whole life, and I've done it in a bunch of different niches, and I was not successful at any one of them. And not because I was trying to become successful necessarily, but because I just was interested in a bunch of different things. And honestly, when I started making content, there was no such thing as successful in content online. It was just a hobby that I had, um, you know, which is kind of a weird hobby when you're 12 years old and in middle school and you're posting videos on the internet, and it's 2008 and everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? And now every middle schooler wants to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
But anyway, as far as the personal development stuff, like I went through my own personal development journey. I mean, I'm still on it, of course, but like my real biggest leap in terms of personal development was between 2019 roughly and 2021/2022. That's kind of where I went from doing certain things like working out and eating healthy because I wanted to, you know, just be in shape and look good and whatever, to truly understanding the importance of all these things and the mental aspect of it. Um, and being truly aware of like my own internal dialogue and the excuses that I make and all these things, right? And like how we're conditioned to prioritize comfort and convenience in society. I think 2020 was a real like wake up call for me in terms of that, because um, because before that time, I always thought, oh, it'd be nice to get in shape. It'd be nice to, have big muscles. It'd be nice to make a lot of money. It'd be nice to, but I didn't feel like it was important. But then 2020 happened, and like it was like the most chaotic year in history. And I kind of started to understand how how it's kind of a cultural narrative to just quote unquote be happy, and like that's what I was told during school when I was growing up. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like everyone just tells you be happy. All the teachers say just be happy, and like what does that even mean? You know, and I think a lot of that is wrong. I think yes, you want to be happy, but what happy is just different than what people think it is. And I figured that out a lot during that time, that like being happy didn't mean feeling good. It meant actually mostly feeling bad, but in the long term feeling good. You know, that idea of like voluntary suffering leading to something better, and like happiness is not just the what you feel at a certain moment. It is the conditions of your life. You know, like happiness is not the feeling you get when you're watching a show, or the dopamine hit you get when you eat a sweet dessert, or how you feel when you're high smoking weed. It's it's building something that you can look around at and be proud of, like, because that feeling of happiness is fleeting. It doesn't matter if you do all the dopamine stuff. It doesn't matter if you smoke weed, watch Netflix, play video games, do all that. That's fleeting too, because the minute you turn the video game off, you're going to go back to being unhappy. The minute that you come down from your weed high, you're going to be unhappy. The minute that you stop eating that bag of Doritos and you look in the mirror, you're going to be unhappy. Like either way you spin it, it's going to be fleeting. And so I would rather have the feeling of feeling bad for a purpose than feeling bad as my natural state, right? Because before, you know, just for context, right? Like when I was in my early 20s, I moved to Florida, and when I moved to Florida, it was my first time like being put into the real world on my own. And I had to find a job. I had to, start making money. I had all these bad habits that I had to quit, like smoking weed and playing video games and doing all these things. And I participated in those for a long time, which led to, you know, not getting a job because I was too focused on being good at Fortnite, not having any money because I spent it all on weed, uh, because I didn't have any cash in the bank because I gave it to some stranger in Florida to buy weed. I didn't have any money to pay my car payment or to pay rent or to pay my credit cards off. So those kept stacking up. I kept getting repossession notices, and I was just, for all intents and purposes, a complete loser. And so as I became aware of a different sense of what happiness was, and the idea of voluntary suffering, and the idea of, you're like, voluntary suffering doesn't necessarily look like being miserable all the time and suffering 24/7. And it's just about doing the things that you need to do that you don't want to do, and doing those so that you can enjoy your life. Once I had that mindset shift and I started adopting that and started changing all these different things, and one by one removing the bad habits and implementing good habits, then my environment changed. Like, I had a better job. I had more money in the bank. My wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, had a better relationship. Everything just started getting better. And it was around that time that I was just like, I got to tell somebody about this, and it wasn't new information, right? Because there's personal development guys everywhere you look now. And I was kind of a personal development junkie at that time too, where I was consuming it all too. Like, I listened to Andy Frisella back in, 2016 when he started his MFCEO project podcast. So I've been engaged with personal development content for a long time, but it never really clicked in my mind until I started really living it. And then I started seeing the results of it. And that's when I was like super passionate about it. And so that's what got me started on the personal development thing, because I realized that, just go to Walmart, go to Disney World, go to any of these places where the general public is, and you can look around and see a bunch of people that looked and probably felt exactly like I felt in 2019. And so just by the mere fact that that's the case, and there's probably more of those people than there are people who are quote unquote personally developed. And just by the mere fact of that being a thing, that means that there's a hole in the market in some way, shape, or form. And it's not market from a business perspective. That's just the term I'm using, right? There's like, they're not being told this, And so that's where I saw the opportunity to be like, well, I've experienced this. I have proof to show it. So, and like, even if I can help one person that is currently where I was at 3-4 years ago, then that's worth posting the content. So that's how I started posting the content in 2022. I'm leaving out one detail. But what actually triggered me to start was First Form, the company First Form. Are you familiar? I don't know if you're familiar.
Okay. I am familiar. Grew up in Southern Illinois. I'm familiar with the HQ down there.
I wasn't sure if you
supplement superstore.
I wasn't sure if you were. So First Form holds an event every year, Summer Smash. I'm actually, funny enough, flying out tomorrow to go to it. So in 2022, it was the first year that I went to it. My wife was super interested. I've always been listening to Andy Frisella. So like, I knew of it, but I didn't know much about it. I just knew he owned the company First Form and supplement superstores and all that. And I knew kind of the history, but I wasn't familiar with the company itself. My wife was more into that on social media. She followed the people that work at HQ. She was kind of into the culture and whatnot. She's the first one that ordered a First Form supplement to our house. And so she was like, I really want to go to Summer Smash. I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know what that is, but I guess if I can go to the place where Andy Frisella works and maybe have the opportunity to meet Andy Frisella, like, that'd be pretty cool. And so I was like, okay, sure, we'll go. And so we went, and it was like the most life-changing experience that I've ever had in my life. Not because Summer Smash itself, like the event, was super like amazing to me. It's a fun event. It's a great time. But like, what really made me say verbatim, what the hell am I doing with my life, was walking into that headquarters and just seeing what they built and just talking to the people, and like, everyone's in shape. Everyone cleans up after themselves. You walk into the bathroom, there's not a speck anywhere. You walk into any gas station bathroom, you're like, what the hell happened here? Then you walk into their bathroom, it looks like it was just built, and nobody's been in it before. And so I was just like, this is absolutely amazing. And I know that if other people, I know that if we brought this culture outside of these walls, then the world can be completely different. Imagine walking into a gas station bathroom and it's pristine, not because the workers cleaned it up, but because people cleaned up after themselves, and it's more about the bathroom. It's not about the bathrooms, but that's just an example of the type of people that we're dealing with. you know I mean, how easy is it to go to the bathroom and wash your hands and not wipe down the sink, like, and make sure it's completely pristine, exactly how you found it? Like, it's very easy to do that. Nobody's going to know, nobody's going to care, nobody's in there with you. You could just blame it on the last guy. But there's a level of integrity and attention to detail that exists within that building that I was just blown away by, that I was like, this needs to be everywhere. And so it also made me reflect and realize, like, look at all these people. All these people are in shape, and they just do their very best to help people. And I spent the 15-hour drive home with my wife, just thinking and reeling about, like, what can I do? Like, what can I, like, with my skill set and my experience and my knowledge? And by this time I had already gone through my sort of personal development transformation. I had the moment where I was like, what can I do? And so I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm good at content. I've experienced a personal development transformation myself. One of the things that I know I can do is I can talk about it. I've been talking on camera for 15 years. I didn't have any followers at the time. I had 800 followers on Instagram, but I knew that I had the ability to do that at least. That was one no-brainer thing that I could do, and so I started doing it. And yeah, so that was what the actual, like, straw that broke the camel's back was. But before that, I had already dabbled in personal development content. It wasn't like how you see it now. It was more just like it was more like a cinematic, like, video vlog style thing. But yeah, that's what really drove me to where we are now. So
They really have an amazing culture over there at First
they do.
Form that they put together. Being from that area, I started listening to Andy early on, 2016,
Yep.
2015, right around there as well. And just being close, or seeing that impact on social media and whatnot. And that very thing that you were talking about is like, that's something that they preach about a lot in their company, is like, you clean up after yourself. If you throw something away and it misses the trash, you go back and you pick it up. And that's something that just crosses my mind, like, at the most random times throughout the day. When I guess I shouldn't say random, but when I know I'm not doing something the way that it should be
Yep.
done. Like that exact example, if I'm like, I need to put something away, but I just put it down on the floor right there, easy. I'm just like, yeah, that's going to eat away at my
Yeah.
brain. So let me just go do it now so I feel
had the
better.
inclination in the store today. Because I'm on this cut and I'm trying to, like, not feel bloated and whatnot. Like, I'm watching my sodium, which I've never done ever. Especially right before Summer Smash. Like, I want to obviously look as good as I can. So I picked up some beef jerky for the plane, and I'm like, you know what? This has a ton of sodium. I'm not gonna do that. But I already walked halfway across the store, so it did cross my mind to be like, if I put this here, nobody's gonna see it, nobody's gonna care. But I thought, no, like, you got to do things the way they're meant to be done. And so I walked all the way back across the store and put it right back where it was. And it's a small thing, but, like, those are the moments where, again, you have those little cracks in your mental armor and your integrity. Like, those little things add up.
Yeah, I love the idea of, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. I love the idea of doing the small daily things, like those small little things, like, hey, I need to go put this back. I need to go do this, building up to the big things that you see people do. Like, if somebody's doing something really mentally taxing, whether that be like some physical challenge, like, a 250-mile ultra marathon, that wasn't developed over time. That was like that mental grit, that mental toughness was developed through the small little things that they don't want to do. Maybe it wasn't developed because they put away what they wanted to put away at that time, but it was developed small and it was developed over time, and it can be lost quickly. Like it's so much easier to get comfortable, and just being comfortable, that comes back so fast, than it is to just build that mental toughness and that mental resilience. Like that takes conscious time and conscious effort to build and develop. And it's huge. What would you recommend people do to start that? Like they've gone through their whole life saying, I'm going to do something, and then not following through. And they have that mental mindset like, hey, I don't follow through with things anymore. Like, how do they switch that around?
I mean, one of the things that helped me was 75 hard. That's kind of like it's not easy. That's not the word. I say it's a simple thing that you can do. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely not easy. Trust me, but it's
objective.
right. It is
like you either did it or you didn't.
something obvious, I should say. It's just like an obvious, here's something, here's a program. If you have nothing else to do that, because that's going to test you, and more importantly, because here's the thing, you can start with small things, just like making your bed, or like putting away the dishes when the dishwasher's done instead of waiting until the next day. Like those things absolutely matter. But 75 hard is unique in the sense of like, it is intentional building, and it's a, you really get a sense of the feeling of building versus these little things that I'm talking about. It's just doing something that you're kind of supposed to do. There's a difference, right? When you make your bed or something, or you put the dishes away, it's like, that's an accomplishment. That's a win. Absolutely. You should do those things. However, 75 hard is a lot more difficult than that. And because it's difficult, and you're building it day after day after day after day, and the consequence of not doing one of those things is to have to start all the way over, your incentive to keep going is high. And so you're incentivized to continue down the path and continue building. Whereas if you say, I'm just going to work out every day and just leave it at that, there's no consequence for skipping a day. Like, yes, you might be disappointed in yourself, but there's no like, I have to start all over again. So 75 hard is unique in that, because it is that it just builds your consistency, and it builds your momentum in a way that, like, the proposition or the idea of purposely not executing one of the tasks is just not worth it. It is not worth going back to day one, because you've suffered through these 30 or 45 days, and it's just not worth it, because you're erasing all the work that you just did. So 75 hard, I'd say, is a great place to start. But if you don't want to do 75 hard, I would just start with the small things. Start with anything that you're currently not doing, like, that you don't have to do, right? Because going to work, saying I'm going to go to work every day, it's like, you have to do that. Okay, cool. But like doing something that you absolutely don't have to do, that nobody's going to know whether you did it or not, like making your bed, right? If you live alone and you don't make your bed, you are the only person on planet Earth that knows you didn't make your bed. But you start to build that integrity, and you start to build that discipline and that awareness of the things that you do when nobody's watching, with those little things like that. So I suggest doing both, obviously, but
Did you complete 75 hard?
I have a few times. Yeah. I don't do it now just
Did
because my indoor training is so taxing, right? Like, I do jiu-jitsu twice a day. I do walk for 30 to 45 minutes, most days. But yeah, I'm just so focused. I'm just focused on whatever gets me better at jiu-jitsu. So, I don't feel the need to be on 75 hard these days. Before, like, probably the last 5 years, I felt like if I'm not doing the program, then I just don't feel good. And this is the first time in years where where I feel great and I have no interest in doing the program. That doesn't take away from the value of the program. I just love what I'm doing right now, and it's working for me. It's working in every area of my life. And so the desire isn't there, but it is a super valuable program. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 2 workouts a day, one inside, one outside, at least an hour, or is it
45 minutes each?
Yeah, 10 pages of a nonfiction book, stick to a diet, gallon of water.
Progress photo every day.
Progress photo every day. Yeah. 75 days, you skip a day,
no,
you skip
a task, you go back.
Yeah, you skip a task, you go back.
You drink 127 ounces of water. You're going back to day one.
It's crazy how even if you know the consequences, if you made it 50 days in, that weak voice in your mind is still like, hey, it's all right. Just take it easy. Take it easy.
Especially if nobody else is going to know.
Yeah, it's insane. And what I think people realize is like, or what people think is, you have those super hardcore people who are resilient, who are dedicated. They think they don't have that voice. But the reality is, like, everybody has that voice. I have that voice all the time. You have that voice. David Goggins has that voice. Problem is, David Goggins just has so much more self-control and so much more of the ability to just be like, hey, I don't care what this voice says. I'm doing what I want to do.
There's 2 voices, right? There's what I want to do and there's what I should do, and the point of personal development and discipline is to make the what I should do voice as loud as humanly possible, so it drowns out the what I want to do voice. And undisciplined people and people who don't have their life together, the problem that they have is that the only voice that they hear is what they want. And they basically, what you give your attention to and what you feed is the voice that's going to be the loudest. So if you live your entire life based off, I want this, so I'm going to do this. I want this food, so I'm going to eat it. I want this drink, I'm going to drink it. I want to watch this show, I'm going to watch it. If that's the voice that you feed, that's the voice that's going to take over your internal dialogue. But if you feed the other voice, I want this, but I should do this, so I'm going to do this, and you repeat that and you beat that drum instead of the other one, well, that's the voice that's going to take over. That's the voice that's going to get louder. And there are times where, you work real hard to get the voice like this, and then you have 1 week, 2 weeks where you for whatever reason aren't as disciplined as you were before. And then it starts to go like this, and this voice starts to creep back. Right. And then the moment you start hearing that voice again, that's your cue to be like, okay, we got to change this. We got to go back to the should do's instead of the want to's,
Absolutely. Well, Matt, I appreciate your time today. This was awesome. I love talking about this type of stuff. It gets me fired up. It gets me going. I've got a like a hour and a half bike ride that I'm going to do right after this, that I was really kind of just like, I don't want to do it today. I already ran this morning, but this was a great conversation to be like, nah, hang this up when we're done and get right back on the bike. Sir. So I'm going to get it on that. I have a question that I like to ask all my guests once we're done. If there was a person that you'd be most interested in speaking to or listening to on a podcast, assuming they're alive and well, who would that person be for you?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people say this, and I think it's one of the probably most popular answers is Jesus. Yeah, I think that'd be the most obvious one. Even if you're an atheist or a skeptic, you have to be like, hey, what's the deal?
Yeah.
So it'd have to be him. Yeah.
Okay. Where can people find you? Where can they follow?
Not Matt Graham on everything. Very simple.
Not Matt Graham on everything. Sweet. Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate your podcast, and I'm excited to see what you keep posting. It's a pleasure. It's motivating. It's the discipline that people need. So it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you.
for listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.